Where do you see yourself in, say, 10 years?
Well, I wouldn't mind being a billionaire like yourself.
He has a client all along and Murphy didn't even see it.
Suppose I were to offer you $1 million for one night with your wife.
There's this movie called Indecent Proposal from 1993. You know, it's the one where a dashing Robert Redford offers $1 million for a night with Demi Moore, much to the anguish of her husband played by Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson's character, named David Murphy, also happens to be an architect. And in this video, we'll explore architectural best practices by learning what not to do from David Murphy. Look, Indecent Proposal is not a good movie, and it definitely has questionable morality all around. However, despite all of the movie's flaws, it does hold the distinction of showing me my first architect. You see, growing up near Detroit, I had never really met an architect before. I didn't even really know what they did, and so regretfully I absorbed a lot of the movie's architectural lessons. Anyway, looking back on it, there's some pretty glaring issues to David Murphy's approach to architecture, which directly relates to this idea of proposal, as the title of the movie suggests. Architects make proposals all the time. That's what they do. Hey, make me a proposal, a client might say. They don't mean draw me a sketch on my wall. They mean give me your fee structure. Show me how you plan to make a building happen. Even when responding to an RFP or a request for proposals, architects are proving their competency while taking their first stab at a design scheme. And David Murphy is completely and repeatedly unable to do this. The Indecent Proposal in this movie isn't made by Robert Redford for a night with Demi Moore. The Indecent Proposal is from Murphy himself. His inability to fashion architectural proposals is embarrassingly indecent. So I thought I'd help him out. And if you were influenced into architecture by this movie at all, you might need to hear this too. And so here are 5 ways to make decent proposals.
It was my dream house.
So tip number 1, use protection. David Murphy was operating as a sole proprietorship, which is really the riskiest business structure because it doesn't offer any legal protection in case of business debt or financial obligations. As Murphy learns the hard way when his property goes into foreclosure, he becomes personally liable for his business's failure.
Yeah, we've been a little late on the payments. We want to settle up.
I don't think that's possible.
What do you mean?
Well, the mortgage is 2 months in default, and it appears that the property is in contract to another party.
A much better arrangement for Murphy is to set up an LLC, or a limited liability company. This video is not offering legal advice, but an LLC is really the best arrangement for Murphy because it offers the protection of a typical corporation because it's treated as a unique entity. But at the same time, it offers the tax simplicity of a sole proprietorship. So profits and losses are reported on the owner's personal tax forms, but the LLC offers protection from business liabilities. To set up an LLC is different in every state. You will need a lawyer, and Murphy already has one, and they're played by Oliver Platt, but if you don't, you'll need one. And while we're here, I would also advise paying close attention to sexual harassment policies in order to alleviate the possibility of developing a hostile working environment. Tip number 2, put away the charcoal. In the opening scene, we're shown David Murphy sitting in the bathroom floor drawing in charcoal on a piece of paper that wraps the corner into 2 other rooms of his house. He claims to be designing his dream house, one that includes all of his ideas about architecture. But that's your problem. House designs only need to hold so many ideas, and 1 or 2 is enough. Time to put away the charcoal, David. You see, David doesn't understand that there are a number of phases to architectural production, and he's stuck in the phase called schematic design. According to the American Institute of Architects, aka the AIA, there are a total of 5 phases to the development of an architectural design. There is schematic design, which is the first, but it only accounts for maybe 15% of the project's time and fees. So what, like 2 or 3 weeks for a house? Schematic design includes the site and the programmatic analysis, the space planning, and the finding the size and location of spaces. It also includes determining how the building will look and work. And during this phase, an architect might be making sketches, models, diagrams, and basic renderings. But then comes design development, which accounts for 20% of time and fees. So that's already more than schematic design. And this is when you pick materials, fixtures, and appliances and things like that. It's where you get more specific about the details of the design. You start talking to engineers about plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and you really nail down the cost estimate. Construction documents come next, and that's 40% of time and fees. And that's where you produce all the technical drawings and specifications. And this is really where the time and money is spent. And then comes bidding, where the owner prepares to select the contractor for the job, which is usually only about 5% of time and fees, and the architect only has a few responsibilities here to help the process. But then during construction, the architect goes through with a phase called construction administration, which is about another 20% of time and fees, where the architect is expected to go visit the job site to see how it's progressing and to make sure that things are going according to the design intent. However, you are not supervising. That is the job of the contractor. During this phase, an architect also reviews a contractor's request for payments, making sure that they align with the way that the work is evolving.
Any other bets?
Who's that guy?
Now, that's John Gage. It's a damn billionaire. It's a rich sumbitch right there.
Number 3, cultivate clients. One of Murphy's most egregious oversights, the real indecency as a professional architect, was his pathological disregard of Redford's character as a potential client. Whenever you meet a billionaire, that is your chance to develop a relationship that could lead to a commission. That is called networking. Even if the commission doesn't come right away, it is good to stay in touch with folks through email campaigns, newsletters with major firm milestones, or with personal notes and inquiries. I mean, later in the movie, Redford even buys the half-built house right out from under Murphy. He has a client all along and Murphy didn't even see it. What the hell? Person-to-person contact is one of the primary and often the most effective ways to market services. Networking, whether in person or through electronic means, is a way to understand the market, to identify the needs of potential clients, develop trust, and maintain contact when a business opportunity arises. Through networking, an architect can often identify a lead or a source of information about a potential client who may need the services of an architecture now and the future. Murphy should also be carrying a business card, at the very least, or some form of brochure or pamphlet with a brief description of his firm and its capabilities and service specialties. That includes representative photographs of his past projects, too. These should serve as a reminder of the firm and encourage a potential client to seek more information about the architect. The traditional printed brochure is now often supplemented with or even replaced by a well-designed website that can be updated more frequently and easily than a full-color brochure. And this website should be listed on that card that he gives Robert Redford.
Tell me, where do you see yourself in, say, 10 years?
Well, I wouldn't mind being a billionaire like yourself.
No, nice shot. I mean beyond money. What would satisfy you completely? Let you sleep well at night?
Number 4, make a proposal. Here's another point where Murphy really falls on his face. After Redford's character expresses interest in architectural services, he might ask for a proposal. And while Murphy might be likely to provide a charcoal sketch, what Redford is really asking for is a fee structure and a project plan. Let's just use this $1 million for sake of simplicity. That $1 million that Robert Redford offers could be Murphy's design fee for a house. And so let's walk through this. Murphy is an award-winning architect.
First in your class, AIA award, Prix de Rome.
He's won AIA awards, the Prix de Rome, which isn't really a possibility for him since he's an American, so let's just assume he meant the Rome Prize. Others winning the Rome Prize around this time were Henry Cobb of Pye Cobb Fried, Elizabeth Platter-Zyberg of Duaney Platter-Zyberg, and Leon Creer. This is elite company. Murphy needs to know his worth while developing a project proposal. Of course, there are multiple kinds of fee structures, like hourly, not to exceed, but I think what makes the most sense here is what's called a stipulated sum fee structure, which can be determined a few different ways, and the easiest being the percentage of project costs. And I'd say that 10% of a fee sounds very reasonable given Murphy's credentials, which means that Redford would be building a $10 million house, which is also in line with our expectations for a house in Santa Monica in 1993. With such a design fee, you might lose maybe 40% of that right away to consultants, like the landscape architect, the mechanical, structural, and civil engineers. And with a high-end house like this, you might also have a pool consultant, a lighting consultant, and AV consultants. This stuff's expensive. And using a typical breakdown of time and cost, you might end up with a schematic design fee of around 90 grand. A part of that goes to overhead costs like rent and reimbursables like printing. Maybe Murphy bills out at around $300 an hour or so, and we're only talking a week max of his time spent sketching on a wall.
Do you want to elaborate on the verification clause?
Verification. That means you pay, even if the relationship isn't consummated.
Point number 5, use a contract. While there's a scene of Murphy's lawyer going over contract negotiations for the so-called Indecent Proposal, we do not get equal insight into his treatment of contracts for his architectural work. However, given his track record of carelessness, it's easy to imagine that he might overlook this crucial component. It seems Murphy's vision as an architect is that they're difficult to work with and often get it wrong.
The great ones are impossible to deal with. They're a pain in the ass because they know that if they do their jobs properly, if they just this once get it right, they can actually lift the human spirit, take it to a higher place.
And this is why it is important to have a solid contract in place prior to the beginning of work. A great resource for contracts comes from the AIA, and you gain access to these once you join and pay your dues. And we already know that Murphy won an AIA award, and so that means he's already a member. The most important contract would be the A201 2017 General Conditions of the Contract for Construction. The General Conditions are an integral part of the contract for construction for a large project. They set forth the rights, the responsibilities, and relationships of the owner, the contractor, and the architect. Though not a party to the contract for construction between owner and contractor, the architect participates in preparing the contract documents and performs construction phase duties and responsibilities described in detail in the General Conditions. If you stuck with it this long, here's a bonus architectural character analysis. While I feel the biggest lesson of David Murphy's journey is regarding the lack of following well-known professional standards, it's my duty as a design professor to talk a little bit about the design work. Majority of the work shown in the film is the accumulation of student projects from the school SciArc, which was also the filming location at 5454 Beethoven Street in Los Angeles, now the location of the Deutsche Ad Agency. His house design is probably done by the production designer for easy mock-up construction, and even Roger Ebert calls this architecturally undistinguished, which I have to agree. However, the other work, and the lecture, shows a real struggle of working through the style called Deconstructivist Architecture, which was popular during the late 1980s and early 90s. One of the primary questions of this period and type of work was about revealing the inner conflict that is inherent to architectural forms. So while in the past, buildings might try to iron out all of the tensions and conflicts of a design in service of showcasing more pure shapes, architects at this time were testing ways to showcase and express this inner conflict that had been repressed for so long. And for a bit of time, this might have been accomplished by arranging simple shapes in a way that forces them to intersect in complicated ways. And this is the technique as seen in the drawings on the wall, where circles and squares are arranged in various overlapping ways. However, deconstructivist architecture and those that were practicing it were seeking ways to showcase conflict within the form itself, to create a sort of unstable monster or an alien form. And this is my assessment of Murphy's character. It's not the external circumstances that cause him to implode. His chaos comes from within, like deconstructivist architecture. He depends and needs Demi Moore's character to complete him or to keep him viable, and without her, he dissolves into chaos. Where this is seen architecturally are in the slides leading up to the final lecture with the work of Frank Gehry, Louis Barragan, and Richard Meyer. Frank Gehry was featured in the exhibition on deconstructivist architecture, and the design principles become his modus operandi for Gehry ever since. But do not get me wrong, that is no excuse for poor business practices, because Frank Gehry is one of the most financially savvy and successful architects alive. Despite the film's many flaws in writing, plot, acting, and morality, one of its overlooked indecencies is the blatant disregard for standards of professional architectural practice. And I hope that you can learn from David Murphy's mistakes for you to make some of your decent proposals of your own. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. You might also enjoy my assessment of building leaks or the architecture of George Costanza. And if all of that sounds intriguing, consider subscribing and hitting the bell button to be notified when new videos come out. See y'all next time.